Hi, Francis. Welcome.
Hi, Nikki. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction and read it down here, and then we will have a bit of a chat. So, Francis, you like the empowerment through story. It, in fact, is your passion. You are the founder of a company called The Matter of Life, which is about storytelling and biographies. So you trained as a biographer for people with terminal illnesses in 2006, and working in healthcare, you found the power of story, healed, connected and transcended time. You were twice fellow of the School of Social Entrepreneurs, and in 2011 founded the charity Beyond Words, which was a community of volunteer biographers for residents in aged care homes, sharing their stories. You've recently returned to the work that you love most, the passion around one-on-ones with people, and that's where Matter of Life comes in.
Yes.
And I know that you and I have known each other for a while, and we've talked about, wellness and that meeting each other in that really perfect, imperfect place where our flaws and mistakes and bumblings, like I did just there in the introduction, is just absolutely fine. And we're not going to cut that out. We will just keep going because that's life. And so over to you to just talk a bit more about your process around, what we're talking about here with anxiety and who you are.
It is an imperfect process. And I was just talking with a friend over coffee just about how a lot of my work is around helping people to value their own lived experience. And I had this, I guess, the terror and the excitement of being a part of this lovely program that you put together. And I realized that, hang on a sec, I don't think I'm really valuing my own lived experience. And then I had this kind of moment of, wow, isn't it kind of funny how maybe we often try to teach the things that we most often want to learn?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And for me, I've had many, many years of really helping people to be heard and helping them really to tell their stories to themselves first and foremost. And, my background, I think, was in, I studied in psychology, and I think I was always felt that had a very kind of clinical, problem-focused approach. And my mum was ill with cancer for the second time in 2005. And so I was feeling very much really trying to sit with death and dying and serious illness and thinking about what does it all mean. And it really shook me up, to consider that someone that was such a big part of my life may not be around. And then somebody mentioned this amazing program of being trained as a volunteer with people in palliative care to help them to write and publish their life stories. I knew immediately that was something that I wanted to be involved in. I didn't understand at the time like how much of an impact that would make on me in other areas of my life. I did the training, and it was the best of a training I've ever done, and I've worked in so many different kinds of jobs. And we were just so well supported to really sit with people and journey with people in the final stages of life, and what a privilege it was, as it turned out. My first client, I still think of today, just made such a huge impact on me, and I think he had a teaching background. And people often say that we die the way we live, or for him it was important to keep teaching, despite the fact that he he was really not mobile. He wasn't able to go out and do the things that he normally. He was a very physical man, bodybuilder during his younger days. And yeah, I think there was that real sense of an elder passing on this amazing knowledge to a younger man, and to be invited into his life, and to be thanked by name in his actual final biography. It really challenged me in many ways, actually. I remember this moment of calling up my supervisor at the time, who then became my mentor, and said, you know, look, Jenny, I've only known this man for really 2 hours, and he's written this letter that he said he wanted to write, thank the CEO, but then he wanted to do something more. And then he wrote this letter. He said he wanted to include it in his final life story, his biography. And then he just goes through all the nurses by name, all the art therapists, all the music therapists, all the massage therapists. And then finally, I'd like to thank Francis for helping me write this story, which has been the highlight of this whole journey.
Wow.
And I called up my supervisor and said, look, I don't know how comfortable I feel about this. You know, I feel like I haven't earned this, you know. And she said, you know, Francis, I get this a lot with my volunteers. And essentially she said, look, this is not about you. This is about, and get over yourself. This is who are you, like, to take this away from a dying man? This is a dying man's wish to express his gratitude to you. So accept it. And perhaps I still have been, you know, accepting it since that. You know, I've been trying to call that in.
Beautiful.
Yeah, a huge impression on my life. I went on to do a few more other clients with just incredibly diverse cultural backgrounds. But I knew that I wanted to be involved in something, in growing it. And so I did some research. I started a PhD looking at these models, and ultimately, you know, discovered in myself that the thing that I wanted to research the most, i.e. a volunteer program in aged care, didn't really exist. And so I felt, you know, if I had a short amount of time, that the thing that I'd most want to do is to create something that grows into something beautiful. And so, yeah, my mentor at that time, she supported me, and we set up a board, and I got into the School for Social Entrepreneurs, which was just a life-changing experience to be surrounded with that network and create friendships with people who were just so passionate and who were just so kind of crazy, but
creative.
Yeah, well, there is that sense of crazy when you're talking about an idea, like something that's only just an idea. It's an incredibly vulnerable space, and like, you know, you might find this in setting up a new business or a new project where you've got this idea and you trust it, and then you reach a stage where you're telling people about it and trying to look at supports and get people involved. It's incredibly crazy, vulnerable kind of feeling. But to do that with so many other like-minded people, I don't think I'd be able to have taken the risks that I have without that support. Yeah, and then that later grew into Beyond Words, which I'm not involved directly in anymore, but that continues to grow, and they're volunteer biography program in aged care. And, so it's something that's been in my life for quite some time. But as you mentioned, I did, in a way, I was maybe forced to take a break through my own I guess, breakdown, spiritual awakening, as Brené Brown likes to call it. And
Yeah.
yeah, and it was as much as I tried to instill this idea of self-care for my volunteers, because, you know, it's such an honor and privilege to listen to people's stories, but it's also challenging, as you know, like working in professions, to be grounded in that and to be supported, particularly when you're hearing difficult, traumatic stories.
Yeah.
So we spend a lot of time around self-care and how do we care for ourselves. But I guess it was a lesson that I really had to learn in all aspects of myself. Yeah, the most difficult decision in my life, but I had to prioritize my health. And really, yeah, let all my work go, because it was really an unhealthy relationship with my passion. Yeah. Someone mentioned to me the other day that passion, the root word, I think, has connotations with suffering.
Okay. Yeah. I think Buddhism speaks about them being very interwoven.
Oh, I see. Yeah. And it was definitely, you know, a love affair with my baby, but it was at some point, yeah, I don't know, I lost myself. And it became everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had this moment of a beautiful, profoundly terrible moment of sitting at the edge of my life of, you know, I need to make a choice here to live. And for me, that was my, ironically, my death moment. You know, and I would have met you shortly after that.
Yeah.
And I was
around that time, and
very vulnerable place. But I don't know if you remember. I mean, I try to remember that time. Incredibly, like it was so incredibly blessed to have people like yourself and friends who were able to sit with me during those really dark, terrible moments, without rushing me through or trying to fix.
Yeah.
Or, you know, saying I should get on medication, or you know, or telling me just to get over it, or it's not really that important. But it was, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, I remember that feeling of that time and just how close to life I felt, you know, and I was living moment to moment. And, you know, I guess part of my thing of working with people with terminal illnesses was that authentic, hey, I am actually living my life moment to moment.
Yeah.
I could die any moment. So, yeah, it's been coming to, I guess, a place of gratitude for these really difficult experiences has, for me, has been healing, and maybe a bit ironic in terms of the work that I do, which is so much around life review and helping people to really reflect over their whole life and to see their life as a whole at a time when they're really most likely bogged down in a difficult transition phase around illness, loss of independence, aging, and really helping people to find that, move away from that picture and to see the broader tapestry, I guess I sometimes use that word.
It's a good word to describe life, I think, a tapestry with such rich weaves, aren't we, through our whole lifetime.
Yeah. If people are able to gain a little bit of perspective on their life and remember some things that they haven't thought about for a while, the happy times, the sad times. Yeah, so I haven't talked much to you about my current client. You know, he's got Parkinson's disease, and it's been horrible over the time that we've been meeting. He's, I guess, been declining steadily. So luckily, we've been able to capture it before it's too late. And I think for him, it's just been this really nice, lovely kind of remembrance of this love affair that he's had for his wife in particular. Yeah, they met at a time where, you know, she was studying medicine, and it was expected that if you were a doctor, you were supposed to marry another doctor. And then so she changed courses so that they could kind of be together.
Oh, beautiful.
And through today's lens, that might sound a bit, you know, oh, it may be a bit sad that a woman would do that. But yeah, I think for that time, you know, in that context, I guess for me, I just see like the affection that they had for each other.
Nice. So some of the, just backtracking a little bit, I know you introduced me to the 5 rhythms dancing. You were saying we connected over music, I remember, and it was music and dance and movement that has been a really big stabilizing factor in your life, and to flow and come into your senses, into your body. Definitely. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, my love affair had been words and books and stories, and I was a very kind of intellectual academic person. Now I still can be. You know, I had a research background, but after I had my spiritual awakening breakdown, I really just let it all go. I had already been dancing 5 rhythms at that time, but I combined the 2 things that I love, which is dance and travel. And I really just dove into this space of silence, because it's a silent practice, as well as this body. And to be able to have that as a constant practice, I think, when I was going through my own chaos, because chaos is one of the waves of 5 rhythms. It was, yeah, I felt this, all the stuff that Gabrielle Roth has taught. I felt this in my life. I felt these kind of energies of flow and staccato and the chaos and the lightness and the playfulness that comes out of that. And it was just an incredible privilege to go traveling and to connect with people beyond, ironically, beyond words, or beyond language is what I mean. And to be able to meet people in Russia or in Budapest or in Turkey, and who spoke very little English, but we're able to connect energetically. And for me, it's been a really different way of knowing, and was tapping into, I guess, the wisdom of my body, whereas before it was just really just engaging this my head, and I would try to problem solve and try to intellectualize these problems that I was having, and noticing that that didn't really help my personal relationships. It was more about feeling and the sense of what is my gut saying, what is my heart saying, what is sexual energy, and what is the rest of my body saying. And so I had many years away from, I guess, that world of words and story, and it's just dance. And now, you know, I launched my new business recently, and that's really marking my return back to the world of story. but I'm trying to remember all these tools and these resources that I have now, and that I don't have to do things differently, and that I, you know, hopefully have a more embodied approach. And more recently reflecting on, you know, I always thought that they were very different worlds that just, I was like, how the hell can they possibly meet? And then through the conversations I've been having, you know, I've made this realization that ultimately these two worlds, you know, it's this idea of deep listening. You know, it happens on a very physical level on a dance floor, in a meditative way of tuning in to my breath and listening to what's going on. And then when I'm dancing in relationship with somebody, tuning into them and really listening to what is there, what are they saying, despite the silence. In the same way as that I will sit with someone and be silent and listen to their story, but try to, people talk about these kind of explicit and implicit stories, and, you know, often it's those silences or the things that are not said, or it's the stuff that's between the lines, or the emotional feeling content that's saying something, despite the fact they might be telling you just a fairly, telling you about facts, you know what I mean, of this, I did this, but yeah, there's a deeper meaning interwoven into those narratives.
Absolutely. In therapy, in Gestalt particularly, we call it I thou. It's what's happening in between the two people that meet, and that's what you described perfectly. There's almost this other entity that arrives when there's a strong connection.
I love that. I mean, one of my favorite quotes, I think, is this thing around, you know, to truly listen is to be changed forever. And that's that idea that we don't, you know, in a lot of clinical interventions, it's like, I've got the thing and, you know, you do this and then you'll be fine. But it was very clear, especially working in palliative care, that, you know, it was almost expected that you can't do this work without being transformed yourself and being moved. And, you know, that's the other side of listening. I think people maybe don't talk about so much, is that, yeah, it has that power to to evoke and to change. And I often think about how do people meet, you know, despite our differences. You know, one of my core values for my business is around diversity, but really, you know, despite how can we have so many different beliefs and groups, memberships that we belong to, and white, black, and Asian, and man and woman, and this religion, that religion, how is it that we're able to still kind of meet? You know, and then I've been thinking about the role of judgments, and Meg Wheatley does this lovely quote around, yeah, it's not our differences that keep us apart. It's our judgments of each other. And I've been trying to really nut that out in myself, especially when I meet someone who's just completely out of my bubble.
Yeah.
Out of my North Side Melbourne bubble.
It's a constant curiosity, I think. That's just one of those lovely questions to keep asking and being curious about through life, isn't it?
Yeah. I guess somewhere along the line, yeah, I've been curious about people who are different.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean I agree or I have to be like that, but it's interesting to be able to dance, and I see that sometimes with people on the dance floor where they have very sharp movements and quite, you know, and I sometimes see them and I think, how is it I'm ever going to dance with this person? And I still might feel compelled to meet them, and somehow, you know, I might just completely soften into the hardness. So I've been really interested in how people meet on many levels: friendships, intimately, dancing, listening.
I feel that was that's been a beautiful conversation, and I love that you're telling your story, and I see you and can hear you and hear your story fully now. That's lovely.
Thanks, Nikki. Yeah, I mean, it sometimes still feels very raw, and you know, this might be sort of the first time that I'm sharing it more publicly, but there's obviously a lot more detail to it. But it's you know, it's I feel safe to share with you, and
Thank you. Thank you for your courage and for being here and for saying yes.
thank you, Nikki. It's been a complete honour and privilege to be a part of this amazing project that you're doing. I know it's going to be wonderful.
Thank you. It's all the parts coming together.
Beautiful tapestry, right?
Absolutely.